My name's Tom Rayom. I'm Chair of the Public Works Committee. I'm calling the meeting to order on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. We're in City Hall Council Chambers in Rapids. We're a little after 6, going on 6:20. To my right, Alderperson Lee Graff, and to my left is Thad Kubishak, other members of the committee. Staff that's out here, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
And we have our mayor here too, so. With that, item number 2, review the DPW report.
Mr. Chairperson, can I make a motion
Yes.
to dispense with the reading and accept it as printed for time purposes?
Okay.
We can't hear.
Oh,
None of us.
Oh, can you hear me now? All right. I'd like to make a motion to dispense with the reading and approve the DPW report as printed in our packets.
I'll second.
okay, committee, all in favor, respond by aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll go on to item number 3, review the refuse collection ordinance. Joe, do you want to start out, or?
Sure. A referral was made to council to reconsider the decision to limit refuse collection to households. The committee.
Excuse me, is there any way you can turn up the volume?
That'd move us up. You're just muffled.
Oh, here. Our hearing isn't that great.
Maybe talk closer into the microphone.
Sure. Okay. Can you hear me now? Sure. Can you hear me okay now?
No.
Huh, I can hear.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Lee.
Technical difficulties here. Bear with us for a minute. Did you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we got you guys fine. I bet you don't. Tangled with the parking loads. Not like this is, we're 80-year-old people, we can't hear. I can hear most of it.
Everybody may just have to speak louder. Yep.
He doesn't think he can change the volume
Okay.
back there.
We'll just have to, the ones that aren't picking up will have to speak louder.
Yeah, I think you got it really close to the
Yep.
microphone.
Okay.
Okay, so a referral was made at the last council meeting to reconsider the decision to limit refuse and recycling collection to households. The committee and the council had discussed this topic for 8 months, from June of 2018 until it was approved by the council in January of 2019. The specific request was around commercial entities. Commercial entities have varying needs for refuse and recycling collection. As a result, municipalities typically provide refuse and recycling service to residential households only and require larger residentials and all other entities to contract for service. Other example municipalities, Wausau, Marshfield, Stevens Point, Oshkosh, La Crosse, Mosinee, and so on. Some business owners have suggested that ending commercial service results in unfair taxing. That said, many municipal services are disproportionate. For example, most commercial properties typically receive snow and ice control and street sweeping services at a much higher frequency, level of service standard, and cost compared to residential properties. The staff recommendation is to retain the current refuse and recycling language.
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, I guess I got a letter here from one of my residents. I haven't even opened it up just in case so that no one says that I tampered with anything, but I'll see what it says. It is from Joe Ranke. He owns Crimson Leaf Mobile Home Park, and it says, to Thaddeus Kubishek and Joe Terry, I own Crimson Leaf Mobile Home Park. There are 32 units. I must remind you they all pay monthly tax to the city. My tenants own their home, pay tax, and average age is 75 years old plus. Some have services brought into their home. Hardships will be for them to walk to the dumpster over ice and snow, rain, and their paying tax should give them some city services. Sincerely, Joe Reinke, Crimson Leaf Mobile Home Park owner.
I'll take questions or comments from those in the audience. If you come forward, if you can, to the microphone there, I believe it's turned on. So everybody will be able to hear us. And identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Linda Wire. I am the manager of Crimson Leaf Mobile Home. I'd like to correct Joe Ranke. We have 33 units, A through Z and 1 through 6. We each own our homes, as Joe pointed out. We each pay our taxes. We pay our utility bills. We get no services from the city. We do not get our streets swept. We don't get our roads salted. We don't get our road plowed. The only thing we get from the city is trash pickup. And now you want to call us a commercial property? We are residents, just like every other resident in the community. We pay our taxes, and the only thing we get for it is trash pickup, and now you want to not pick up our trash? Then I don't understand why I should continue to pay taxes. Those are my comments.
I'm Dan Rodak, and my dad lives in Crimson Leaf, and he's 97, and he has enough trouble without having an extra bill and so on, and I'm just hoping that this doesn't go through, because a lot of us don't need that. You know, we've got enough problems, and so I hope that we can figure out something that might work, and picking up the garbage really helps us, because we can just set it out there, and none of us have all that much normally, so it's not a big ordeal. So hopefully you can do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bonnie Blanc. I do get something from the city. I have a very wobbly fence in the back because the snow was over the 5-foot fence because they plowed it towards our side of the road and blocked this one lady out. And I had to help her shovel it out every time so she could move her car because she doesn't have a garage.
Next.
My name is Todd Furkey. I'm representing 401 12th Avenue South, which is a commercial business. We've had our garbage picked up for the last few years in front of our building. 2 or 3 bags of garbage that is left by the curb, just like the houses across the street. That's how they leave their garbage. The city's recycling program allows for a larger receptacle. We don't recycle our plastic, our glass at the commercial business. I bring that all to my home and recycle it there. The cardboard and paper, that goes to the Cora Enzo mill. I haul that myself. And as far as the garbage, again, we generate 2 or 3 bags of garbage a week. We pay quite a bit in taxes, probably double or triple what any of an average residence would pay. So we don't get any salting, street sweep, well, the street sweeping, yes, but as far as on our property, we don't get any city services other than the water, sewer, and stuff that we pay for in other ways. So having our garbage pickup removed from us and not seeing anything reflected on our tax bill, I think is quite unfair. We do not generate the amount of garbage a McDonald's does or a paper mill does or anything else like that with pallets. If we were allowed to have a single receptacle similar to what a house does, I'm sure our garbage would fit in there weekly and not be something that would be strewn out on the curb, bags that get ripped open. Having been contacted by these 3 companies that the city had listed on the form letter that was sent out to us, they contacted me offering dumpsters and stuff like that. I don't know where I would put a dumpster because my parking lot, we try and plow that in the wintertime, of course. And so if we got a dumpster someplace, it's going to get blocked in by a pile of snow. And to work around that would be extremely difficult. I also questioned when you have a dumpster on your property, it seems to be a good receptacle for somebody that wants to get rid of a junk TV or some tires that they don't want to pay the disposal for. So when Waste Management or one of these other companies were in, I says, what happens with that? I mean, certainly I shouldn't have to pay for somebody's junk TV that they just left in a dumpster on my property. And they said, certainly you would. If somebody leaves tires, air conditioners, batteries, TVs, any electronics in your dumpster, the property owner is going to pay for it. So there again, I feel that's quite unfair. I realize it's not the city's issue. The city has enough problems with illegal dumping of tires and TVs and stuff like that right on our own bike path. So I've seen that in the past. Having a dumpster on my property is certainly not something I would desire, certainly something that's not needed with the amount of garbage that I generate. So I realize the issue with the individual mobile homes is different than mine. The letter that I received seemed to relate more to a commercial business rather than a mobile home, but evidently they're being singled out also. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Betty Dawes. I live at Crimson Leaf at Lot Z. I've been out there 25 years. Before even moving up here, I was a nurse's aide at one time for many years. I know what happens to old people. I've held their hands when they take their last breath. I've helped them to reach death. I've seen people cry. These people have a hard time walking. Some can't make steps. Some have all to do to even put their nose out the door. How are they going to carry a tiny little half bag of garbage? That's all the handicapped ones can manage. Occasionally, we do have a lot of garbage up there. I've seen a person a year ago vacate a home and he trashed it. The park had to clean it. It finally rented out. Now, how are they going to face first time in now? All of a sudden, no garbage can be picked up? I've also heard a person say, I lost my train of thought, excuse me. I heard a person say that if we do not get our recyclables picked up anymore, it's going in the garbage. We can't take it wherever I have to go to dump recyclables. I have no idea, even after 25 years, where you recycle your own garbage. Please keep this as it is. That's too much to put on their shoulders, and they can't handle it. Give it a second thought at least. Don't just pass this over for another day. I can't argue with the taxes. I've been here 25 years. I've done my job. I've paid taxes. We each help together. Otherwise, somebody's going to go without help out here. So just please reconsider and make it a little easier for us and keep it the way it is. At least we don't. Oh, another thing. Do you ever think of seniors don't like routine broken? They're used to that. You throw their thoughts off, they are so confused, like they're not confused enough. Please give it a thought. Thanks.
My name is Judy Peck. I want to know what the city's benefit is of this. I mean, are you looking to cut garbage people's jobs? I'd like to know why it was changed to commercial. I mean, I'm looking what the benefit of, the city is going to get out of this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for the council.
Can you come forward, please?
Yeah. Most of the comments that have been made so far, are regarding.
Your name, sir?
My name is Kevin Swenby, and I live in Maples, Crimson Leaf Park. I'm probably the youngest resident there. I'm 59. Most of the comments that have been made so far deal with, can you hear me? Most of the comments that have been made so far deal with the personal aspects and the suffering that would occur. Asking elderly people, and once again, I'll clarify that I'm only 59, so I'm the youngest resident there. But asking elderly people in this park to walk out into the street and carry their garbage down to a single collection unit, even if they were on either end, is going to be problematic because it's just a matter of time before someone falls and breaks a hip. Now, that is more or less what you've heard thus far. I have a question, and my question is this. I understand the need for the municipality to find revenue wherever it can, either to raise revenue through taxes or to cut services. Every municipality, both on the state, local, and federal level, is struggling with those concerns. I don't mean to touch on national politics because they're so divisive, but the revenue problem is significant in that we borrow more than $1 trillion every year in and year out. And from the federal level to the state level to municipal localities, that is a constant, ongoing problem that's been occurring in this country for many years. So I'll move on to something. I first have a question. In our mobile home park, the residents own their mobile homes, and they are assessed, each mobile home is assessed property taxes. And we pay lot rent there, but we own the mobile homes. The city assessor delivers those assessments by hand rather than mailing them out. I guess he prefers to do it that way. I think they should be mailed. But in any case, when we receive those tax bills, they're turned into Mr. Reinke in one form or another. And then Mr. Reinke adds those into the rent. But the reason I'm mentioning this is that if you are an apartment, if you live in an apartment in Rapids, you don't pay property taxes, you do not receive a property tax bill. The owner of that complex, a commercial entity, pays the property taxes. Now, an argument could be made, and I would suggest not a very good one, that, well, that individual who owns that apartment complex is paying property taxes for the renters who live there. Technically, legally, he's not. There's no language in those renters' contracts regarding property taxes. So I would point out that unless there's a delineation that makes sense between an apartment complex where renters do not own any portion of the building, where renters do not receive a property tax bill, whereas I can only speak for our mobile home park, but every resident there receives a property tax bill, and Mr. Reinke collects those taxes through the rent. Not everyone's rent is identical. It varies based upon the value of the mobile home. Now, I would suggest that, going back to my opening about revenue, every municipality, be it local, state, federal, are struggling with costs, and either by raising revenues through taxes or cutting services. Those are the only two avenues that government has. Being that that's the case, and being that clearly to make a comparison and suggest that this is apples to apples, renters in commercial units who don't receive a property tax bill and who don't pay property taxes, and there's no language in their rental contracts that they're contributing towards property taxes. To suggest that that is apples to apples in the people who live in my mobile home park overlooks the fact that that's not the case. Each resident in my park receives a property tax bill, and each unit is assessed differently than every other unit, and Mr. Reinke collects those. Now, we could pay those directly, and I'm not here to open up a can of worms, but what I'm suggesting is that if your rationale is to suggest that the people who live in my mobile home park, including myself, who do pay property taxes, and you're suggesting that this is a commercial entity, granted, Mr. Reinke owns the land, he pays property taxes on the land. Granted, we do rent the space that our mobile home does sit on, but once again, each and every mobile home in the park is assessed by the city assessor. Now, I'm just going to surmise and end my comments this way. We've reached a point in this country where the least amongst us, who have the least of all of us, are being asked to pay more and more, while the people who have the most are being asked to pay less and less. If you earned $10 million last year, with regard to the new tax bill that was passed in Washington, you got a $463,000 tax cut.
Yes, but let's just keep it to what the issue.
No, I understand, but once again, this has to deal with revenues and costs and how municipalities struggle with those. So what I'm pointing out by making that remark is that you're asking people with less to pay more. And while I understand every municipality struggles with these issues, we're reaching a point in our society where those who have the most are asked to pay the least or not pay at all. And it seems to me that I have not heard, with regard to the opening remarks made by the council, that I did not hear a rationale that makes any sense to me, suggesting that there's no difference between renters at commercial complexes and people who live in this mobile home park who own their mobile homes and pay property taxes on those homes. Now, if it's a matter of adding up the pennies and dollars, I understand that. But it seems to me that someone here needs to speak to why those two things are different or why they're the same. And I haven't heard a rationale for that.
Okay, can you just wrap up your comments here?
Yeah, that's basically all I have to say.
Okay.
But I have not heard anyone yet, and I would like to hear an explanation as to what the delineation is.
Thank you.
If there is one. In this case, there apparently is not, and I'd like to know why. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe, maybe I think what we should do is just review again how we got here, I think, of over the past, I think, 8 months or so that this had been talked about and whatever, and the change that was approved and made, and we're reviewing that this evening, so just, Joe.
Sure. So we started looking at our refuse and recycling program a couple of years ago. As our trucks were failing, most municipalities have gone to an automated collection process. Having 2 people on a truck is inefficient, and having a person riding on the back of the truck is, I think, the 5th most dangerous profession in the country. And so we're trying to do a multitude of things, improve our general overall level of service, be safer, reduce the size of our collection fleet if possible, and provide a level of service that's consistent. And one of the challenges that any municipality faces is providing a balance of services so that the protective services are properly funded, so that roads and streets are properly funded, so that parks are properly funded, and any of the other services that a municipality provides is looked at with an appropriate compromise to provide the best level of services as possible. The recycling program started first because those trucks were end of life first. Most municipalities would start both the recycling and refuse collection automated process with these carts at the same time. But we weren't quite ready to do that. And so we addressed the recycling first. We had some challenges with rolling the program out. We had some challenges. We tried some experiments in some of the different multifamily areas, some of the different mobile home parks. We talked about different levels of service to commercial entities. And as we were facing those challenges, we looked at what other municipalities were doing as well. And it became apparent that most municipalities provide only curbside collection to residential homes and duplexes and small apartments. That the level of service needs for commercial entities vary from a bag or 2 bags a week to a 2 or 3 yard dumpster. That some of the larger apartment type complexes, it's unreasonable to try to collect individual cans from those. Dumpsters are more practical. And in a mobile home park, the challenge that we face is driving an overweight truck through some of the small areas and stopping at every location to collect the garbage. They're different. Not all the parks are the same. And so those varying types of needs and looking at what other municipalities have done caused us to take a look at our ordinance over a 8-month period and make some tough recommendations. And one of the comments about a dumpster for a mobile home park, again, some mobile home parks that might be the most efficient. Other mobile home parks might be more efficient to have the individual pickup. And that's one of the reasons why it was recommended and why it was finally approved to have the mobile home parks provide that service, contract that service so that they can get the service that best suits that particular park, because they are very different. They're not all the same. And so we've, I think it was January, the ordinance was approved. The city has ordered the 2 new trucks. We're replacing, we're replacing 4 garbage trucks with 2 garbage trucks because our garbage and recycling trucks are virtually identical. Instead of having 1 extra recycling truck in case our recycling truck breaks down and an extra garbage trucks in case the garbage trucks break down, we now have only 1 extra truck. So we've reduced the fleet from 6 to 4. We're shorthanded in some of our routine maintenance activities, some of our street patching work, some of our parks and mowing work. And so we're utilizing the staff that was on those trucks to help us out in some of these other areas. And we're also creating new routes, trying to make our daily activities more efficient so that we can use our staff for more activities outside of the garbage and recycling program. I think that summarizes how we got to where we did.
I had a question for you.
Speak louder, or you're going to have to.
With regard to what you just said, I didn't hear an answer to my original question, and that was, how are you defining our mobile home park where people own their own mobile homes and they pay property taxes, and comparing that to a commercial entity? The other thing that I heard you say was you're trying to streamline your services, make them more efficient. And so you're cutting back on the number of trucks, personnel, and whatnot, especially as automation becomes more available. The most efficient trash recycling system that I've seen was in a community in south central Wisconsin where they had a unit for receptacles, for recyclables, and an identical unit for regular trash. And so they were picked up by 2 different trucks. One would pick up with an automated arm, would pick up the recyclables, and then a few hours later, another truck would come by with an automated arm and pick up just the trash. I suspect that that's the system you're moving towards, and would seem to me to be the most efficient, because it doesn't require the driver to get out. It doesn't require a second person. And given that automation is becoming more and more available, and I'm guessing that that's the system you're going to be employing.
Yes, it is.
And so therefore, that system is so much more efficient than the one that you have now, yet you're still cutting the services in our mobile home park. So while you're becoming more efficient, you're cutting services. And so once again, it comes down to revenue and costs. And I think that once again, you're asking people who have less to pay more, especially given that your service model is going to become far more efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, okay, do you have a quick comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment on your comment saying that driving, the riders on the trash truck and the people who drive those, picking up our trash, is the 5th most dangerous job there is. I don't know where you got that information, but I think you should be a little more careful with your comments. The 5th most dangerous job in our country, in the world, is being an airline pilot and being overworked. That is the 5th most dangerous job. The 2nd most dangerous job is being a cobra catcher. So I believe that what you're trying to do is become automated to be more efficient, which saves money for our community, and I understand that. Then you're also going to make our landlord pay to have our trash picked up by contracting the same guys who are on the street to come around where they always have and do the same thing they've always done to pick up our trash, but that's going to raise our rent. So now you're not only getting our taxes, you're double dipping by making us pay more for our trash, and you're getting better services. I don't understand where all that money is needed in our community, but I assume it has to do with the new pool that's being built. That's more important than our trash.
Thank you, ma'am. Somebody else had their hand up? Okay, ma'am. Come forward if you...
Seniors worked all their life, paid big taxes, and I think it's very obvious that we are becoming throwaway people, and the mobile home parks to Wisconsin Rapids are becoming a throwaway also.
Why couldn't we come to a compromise? I've seen those recyclables, the recyclable bin. I only put mine out sometimes just once a month because I don't have that many recyclables. I'm a single person. I know many of the park members are single. I've seen in Port Edwards, if we're going to the trash bins that are the same size, Mr. Furkey, you have 3 bags. You can fit that in one of those bins. Why don't you go to a schedule that you have a pickup once a month for garbage, once a month for recyclables? That will cut your costs. And then you can have, and then we could have our services. It's a compromise.
One other thing that I'd like to mention is you mentioned something in regards to how they can pick it up and so on, and each park is different and so on, and our park is a straight shot. It takes the garbage men probably 10 minutes, if that, to go all the way through the whole park and pick up all the trash. Because usually some of the bags are little Walmart bags of garbage. So like she mentioned also, it may be an option to come once a month, because I don't put my recycle bin out maybe once every 2 months, you know, cardboard and cans and so on. That big thing is pretty huge for a single person to fill up in a week or 2 weeks. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
There's one thing nobody's mentioned. Most of us are retired. We're on a pension. Some of them are quite small.
Committee and staff, I guess, the referral here is to review the refuse collection ordinance. And we've heard several comments from the audience. I guess where are we? As far, I mean, we do have we did pass the ordinance, and that's what it is. We have listened to the concerns of the people that have come tonight, so. Ed?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson. I think that it's definitely broken, and that's why I voted against it in the first place. So you're kind of preaching to the choir to me. Can we solve it immediately? I don't know. I don't think so. But I do think that we need to solve something because and a lot of times there are unintended consequences that occur. Well, the cool thing about a municipality, the city here, is that we can repeal any ordinance that we've approved prior and make it right. So I don't think that, especially if it was unintended, which there could be a possibility of that, we can always make it right. And I would like to try and do that, however we need to do that.
Okay. As we're is on the agenda tonight is to review, and that's what we are doing by listening and talking amongst ourselves. I don't see that this evening that action would be taken to change what the ordinance is, because on our agenda is to review it. So from that, we'd go either look at if changes could be made to, I guess for lack of a better word, to make it more compatible to what the people are saying, if that can be done or should be done even, or where we're at. So we have, I think we've heard the comments. I don't know if staff, if you have anything to
Excuse me,
add
I
at the,
had one additional question.
no, just a second, sir. Because I think that's all we were here for tonight, is to listen to concerns of the people and to then see if there is, if we would like to reconsider this, or if we can, or what we can do. Sir, real quick.
Yeah, about the automated trucks that you're going to be employing, where the trucks are automated with the large arm and they each pick up. They don't require any manual labor other than the individual driving the truck. Are those, when you make that change, are you going to be contracting? Will the city no longer be employing public employees to do that? Will they be employing a private firm to do that?
That's the city employees.
Okay, so
City
we'll
trucks-
remain-
city
because
trucks, city-
because I know that in the municipality that I mentioned, that they are not city employees and they are contractors.
This is staying within the city.
Okay.
City
My
employees.
guess is down the road that may change.
Personally, I hope not, and that's not, that I know of, is not the intent to do.
But once again, I have not heard
Okay.
an explanation as to the difference between the property taxpayers who are paying on their
And
mobile
that,
units.
sir, may be part of the review that we take upon ourselves to
Because I'm,
answer
Yeah.
some questions.
and not that I mean to become technical, but the protection clause in the 14th Amendment would seem to address that
And
with regard to the
that's
collection of
why
property taxes.
some of those things would have to be, as we're not the legal people, experts ourselves, that would have to, some of that has to be answered by the attorneys.
Very
And-
good.
And that would be part of, again, part of the review
But
process.
I think that question needs to be resolved. And I would just make the suggestion, I have to hand this to one of you. It's a property tax bill a lady would like me to give you. But given that your system is going to be far more efficient, and you're going to the system that I described with the automated trucks and no manual labor, that efficiency is going to be, my guess is far more efficient than what you have now. So with regard to the questions that I've raised, I'd appreciate it, and I suspect that you will look at this again. This is a tax bill that lady has given me to give to someone here. Can I do that? And whom should I give it to?
Oh, I'll accept it here.
Very good.
And it gets to a point, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mayor.
To make a copy of that and enter it into the record.
Each one of us has one of those.
Sure. And I guess there was a question that was raised regarding property taxes, and I just wanted to, I'm glad that you had a copy of this, because my understanding was that the mobile home parks themselves didn't pay property taxes, but paid personal property taxes. And under state law, and I don't know when the change has been proposed to take effect, but my understanding is that personal property taxes in Wisconsin may be disappearing. So at some point in the future here, there may not be personal property taxes in the state. They've already bought it down. 50% of the personal property tax has already been bought down.
I guess I don't understand.
I don't want to get
tax bills that we receive are specific
right. These are
property
these
taxes.
are permit fee. These are municipal permit fees for mobile home parks. So they're not actually property taxes. So this is the computation of mobile home municipal permit fee. But I don't want to get in, just to honor your meeting here, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to offer a couple of comments, if I could, about.
Sure, go ahead, man.
To add just to what Joe Terry had stated, and I give the committee a lot of credit, because while a lot of times people can believe that municipal government, that things just happen on a whim and we got to deal with it, and certainly appreciate hearing the feedback and input thus far. But the committee spent over a year discussing a tremendous amount of aspects of this, as well as staff comparing and contrasting our municipal services with those that are in communities around the state and around the region locally. And so I just want to commend everyone for listening and taking into account a lot of the feedback. I just had a question for the committee. I offered just a couple of specific comments late last week to council members about some areas where we may have to rework aspects of the ordinance, and I just was going to ask the committee if there was any specific direction you wanted staff to take, or myself, not necessarily in the form of a referral or a recommended action tonight. There's been a lot of data and a lot of consideration about the various impacts thus far, and maybe Alderperson Kubaschak, who has some concerns and voted against the previous ordinance, if there's some areas that we should collectively come back to the committee or to the council as a whole for areas for improvement.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess one of the things that I'd kind of look at, or I'd like to have taken a look at is, and we had worked on this ordinance for quite a while. One of the things that we were proposing is that everybody was going to get carts, but then there was going to be a fee based with mobile home parks, and whether it was the actual owner paying the fee or however. But then at the last minute, and interestingly enough, I thought that I had brought up concerns about the levy limit law, and I'm trying to find a particular meeting back in July or August that I had brought it up, and it was kind of, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And then in January, when we were all set to roll this out so that everybody would get garbage collection, it was suggested, wait, levy limits, we can't sell these bins to different parties, because then technically that would be a violation of levy limit law, because now you're creating a fee-based service that you're either taking a service away or whatever. It's kind of a convoluted law to begin with at the state level. But that was a problem that we had. So then what are the options? Either the options are we now give carts to everybody, which we could. There's no law provided at state level or local level or anything that says that we can't give these carts, but we can't charge a fee for them. So then ultimately what happens is are we going to give the carts to a specific entity, which would be a mobile home park, or we don't? And the ultimate decision was we didn't. So that's what I was against. That's why I voted against the ordinance. And that specific aspect, that's one thing that I think that we can rework. Obviously, there will be a cost to the municipality, but the remedy would be is providing services to the people that had been getting services for the last 20 years. And that's what I wanted to ensure, is that services don't get cut. I think that local governments have, and we do, it's challenging at times to make decisions, but one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being at Wisconsin Rapids here is providing services for residents. If you didn't want services, you would live in a surrounding town. So if we stop providing services, what is the slippery slope? Where will we be if we're not providing services for residents? So this was a continuing service. That's why I wanted to see it continue. So if that addresses your question, Mr. Mayor.
I have one more question for you, sir.
Okay.
Oh, can I have,
One question, real
Yeah.
quick again, and then, because there are a couple others, I think, that have a comment to make.
very good. You mentioned a difference between property taxes and personal property taxes. So you're, and I was not aware of this, but you're saying that the property tax bill that a homeowner gets here in the state of Wisconsin is technically different than the property tax bill that a mobile homeowner gets, that they're actually different?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so the mobile home park pays property taxes, right? They're the owner of the property. You're
On the land, you're saying?
right. Your piece of property is an improvement that's non-permanent to the property, right? So the city has opted to assess permit fees for those properties of which that are dwelling units in this case at Crimson Leaf Court, right?
I see. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Just one quick question and a comment. Are you aware this is a senior park? We have no 30-year-old hunk out there willing to help us. We have no 18, 16-year-old kids to help us. We're all old people. This is a senior park, not just a mobile home park. Crimson Leaf Senior Park. Thanks.
Okay. With that, I think we can move on. We've have listened, we've reviewed, staff, I think, there's been some, from the committee has been concerns raised, questions and that, and we will take another look at that. If there is anything that can be done or should be done and whatever. And so, because I said there, tonight was not to make a decision, it was to hear concerns that there were. And I think we've listened. And so that, we will look at the comments, I think, that was just brought up here too, as far as the taxes, property taxes and that, so of what definition of each are and that, so. With that, I think we can move on to our next item. I thank you all for coming. We have listened. We will talk about, yes, ma'am, real quick.
Who gets our cards now?
Come, go to the microphone, please.
What happens to our containers now? We were told we have to pay $55 if we don't leave them out on a certain day, the recycling containers. What happens to them?
Oh, you pick, that's the day they pick them up on. They want you to put them out front.
Yeah, but what happens to them?
They go back to the city.
On the 14th of May.
They go back to the city.
They go to the real residents, not us. Yeah. The important
They go back to the real residents.
This will be, this is part of our, what will go to the city council, the full council meeting in 2 weeks. There's not the
I
recommendation.
guess that was my question, is
There's
when will
not-
we know, when is the next meeting, when will you vote? Is that something that we can hear as well?
Well, there's nothing on the agenda of that we're going to change anything or whatever. But we will be talking about that ourselves, so I can't say when a
So
date
we
would
won't
be.
really know.
This will be reported to the council in 2 weeks as part of our committee of all our issues tonight, so.
Thank you, sir.
What about the dates you got scheduled for picking?
We'll have to take that into consideration and act appropriately. Thank you.
Okay. I think you're going to lose all of us.
Item 4 is to hold an assessment hearing for public improvements along High Street from 7th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North. I don't know if we have anybody here that will have. I'm going to call 3 times for if anybody's here to address the committee here with their concerns on the assessments. That's the one time, first time. Second time, is anybody here to talk about that? Third time, is anybody here to talk about the assessment hearings? Assessment for improvements, High Street from 7th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North. Joe?
Tom, I think as a general matter of procedure for the purpose of the hearing, it would be important for the city engineer to give a brief overview of the assessment report.
Okay, go ahead.
So in the packet, there's some information in there. The proposed assessment report is there. Summary report for this project, there totals $101,127.76 in proposed assessments over 13 properties. And then each property is itemized thereafter in the report, so that, barring any errors or any issues that might arise, these individual proposed assessment reports will be converted into invoices and mailed out shortly hereafter, if the approval of the final resolution.
All right, and I guess I apologize for not doing that first, but if there is anybody here, I'll give one more chance to appear to talk to the committee. Hearing none with that, I'll close the hearing here, and we can move on to item number 5. And that's consider a final resolution authorizing assessments for the installation of public improvements along High Street from 7th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North. Joe?
So a copy of that resolution is included in your packet, and it is a standard final resolution authorizing assessments for public improvements for this project. We'd look for a motion to approve.
Also move. I'll make the motion. I'm sorry, I didn't finish, I guess, what the motion. I move to the, authorize the assessments for the installation of improvements there. A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion, committee on anything, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor. Oops, Lee.
Joe, do you know, what is, just state for the record, the percentage in which the assessments were made to the homeowner per ordinance?
So it varies based on the assessable item. Permanent street surfacing is assessed at 20% of the actual costs. For High Street, there was a 25% reduction on those assessments due to the fact that it's a collector street versus a local street. Curb and gutter is assessed at 2/3 actual cost. Sidewalk is 100% to the property owner, as well as sanitary leads and water services.
Does that answer it, Lee? Everything? Okay. If there's nothing else, committee, we can vote. All in favor, respond by aye. Aye, opposed, ayes have it. Item 6 is to hold an assessment hearing for public improvements along Van Buren Street from 8th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North. Joe?
So the proposed assessment report is attached. Again, there's a summary sheet which kind kind of gives you an overview of all the property owners and assessments, along with the individual proposed assessment reports for each property. The total assessments for this project come to $56,739.58, and I believe that's over 8 parcels.
And again, is anybody present here that, for the hearing, to address the committee or staff? Anybody here that I can't see hiding behind the podium there? And again, is anybody present here to ask questions or talk about the assessments? Hearing none, committee, I'll close the hearing, I guess, for that, and go to item 7, and that's consider a final resolution authorizing assessments for the installation of public improvements along Van Buren Street from 8th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North.
So again, there's a draft final resolution that's included in the packet for the proposed assessment, and staff make the recommendation to approve.
Having looked at that, I'll move that we approve the final resolution authorizing assessments for the installation of public improvements along Van Buren Street from 8th Avenue North to 10th Avenue North.
I'll second.
Any other discussion, committee? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, respond by aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Item 8 is to review and consider proposals for sidewalk maintenance and curb and gutter maintenance in 2019.
So we had.
And we do have the handout here.
Yep.
Hey, Joe?
The, just to kind of run through that real quick for you, we reached out to all of the local contractors that normally get licensed and bonded through the engineering department for permits throughout the calendar year. And there's a few contractors that expressed interest in this specific contract and the way that we were looking at doing it. Normally, we include it with our annual contract, which is bid out, but seeing that it's maintenance work and it's maybe will provide some flexibility for the city to make sure that the maintenance work actually gets completed in a timely fashion. We sent out the request for proposals to the contractors. We got one back from Joslin Concrete. That's the one that's in the packet here. And that was the only one that we received. Total submitted cost, $123,000 roughly. For comparison purposes, we did a cost estimate based upon our prior year's unit costs. That came in at $146,000. So certainly the unit costs look favorable. It's something that the city would recommend moving forward with.
Has Joslin done any, I don't have any problem with it, has Joslin done any work for us in the past? And were they, and I should say some other company before or part of a few years back? Or
Their history, I'm not sure. Maybe some of their workers were part of a different company. They have done work for us in the past. They've done work for Wood County. Most of, I don't know about the bigger projects, but this will be maintenance work, so it'll be pieces of sidewalk, pieces of curb and gutter, and certainly they're equipped to do that.
maybe of some of the workers or whatever, but okay. Committee, anything? Okay. I'll move to approve the proposals for sidewalk maintenance and curb and gutter maintenance in 2019 from Joslin Concrete. We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in committee, all those in favor respond by aye. Aye, opposed, the ayes have it. Item 9 is to consider the discontinuance of a portion of East Commerce Drive. And okay, go ahead, Joe.
If you were watching or attending the Planning Commission meeting yesterday, this item was reviewed at the Planning Commission. It also needs to be reviewed by the Public Works Committee. The resolution for this speaks for itself. It's to discontinue a portion of East Commerce Drive as described in the packet. This is to facilitate the Metalco project. That particular drive would no longer serve the general public. It would just serve that entity. And so staff makes the recommendation to approve the resolution conditional upon Metalco including utility easements in their certified survey to protect the city's interests in the sewer and water mains that exist in the current right-of-way.
Thank you. A motion to approve, I'll second that, discontinuance of a portion of East Commerce Drive. Any further questions or anything? Hearing none, committee will vote. All those in favor respond by aye. Aye, opposed, the ayes have it. Item 10 is to review our referral list. The only one on there, I guess, and that'd be 14, and that we, I guess, for this evening to leave that there and to see where we go, what we do with it in the future. That's what we just had a lengthy discussion on, so. If there's nothing else or any additions that the committee would have, anybody wants to make, otherwise, we're to item 11, and that's, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Tom.
Oops. Did have a question before.
So I guess moving forward, in light of tonight's testimony from residents in the city and the fact that we tried vetting us out, our action item moving forward is to relook at the ordinance in order to evaluate. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I think it's to look at definition of the taxes and that, and I think to what, concerns that were raised of property taxes and what the exact definitions are of that. But I think, but it is to, at least my intent is to revisit that, but we'd have to, it's to take into account everything, so.
Well, I'm just asking that because of the spreadsheet that I received that has about 146 different properties that are affected from the new ordinance. Is the stipulation to look at all 147 properties?
That I think would be up to what direction the committee would want to, for us to go to, and to give to staff that direction to look at whatever. Joe?
Yeah, so as staff, we reviewed, we did have some, some questions and made some interpretations and reviewed, there's a few parcels that were a bit challenging. Because there are so many unique parcels, one of the questions that arose and we met with the assessor's office to talk about how the type of status that they put on certain parcels, whether it's commercial or residential, is, for example, some of the commercially zoned property along West Grand Avenue. Those parcels are all zoned commercial. They're all listed as commercial. In the assessor's office, they're listed as commercial. There's a couple of them that have some residential use, and that is, that was a question for us. And, based on that, there's, I think, one or two of those properties that receive the same letters that they wouldn't be receiving service for that reason. We tried to be real careful and give a lot of thought on some of these questionable ones. We asked those questions of some of the other departments here in the city to make sure that we're being consistent. We did send out 3 different types of letters. There were letters that went out to residents initially. There's letters that went out to the duplex, 3-plex, and 4-plex properties. There were letters that went out to the mobile home parks, and there was one more set, right? The commercial properties and the multifamily properties. Through this process and doing our own audit, we discovered that there were some properties that were receiving service that shouldn't have been. Some of the multifamily type properties, and these decisions are always challenging. Again, you're trying to develop a level of service that works for most, and there are a number of entities that don't fall into that category. So it is always a challenging situation, especially when we're trying to make some compromises. But as staff, I guess, as you hear from your constituents, we would appreciate some guidance as far as if there's specific things you want us to look into. Clearly, spending the amount of time that we have over the last year, it is time consuming, and we want to make sure that we're spending our time as efficiently as possible. So, I don't want to speculate on some of the things that the committee may want us to revisit and spend time needlessly. I want to make sure that this time that we are spending on this is well spent, and that we're focusing on the challenges that you want us to focus on. So if you do have some guidance, we certainly would appreciate that.
Todd?
So I would ask that you maybe, the letters that were sent out to the commercial properties, those that have used the city's garbage pickup in the past, maybe that would be a consideration too that would be looked at. And then also, I'm sure some of the ladies, what they were referring to is the forfeiture of their recycling bins is supposed to take place. So right now, everybody's kind of in limbo what the direction is going to be with the Public Works and with the council. We don't know what we should do in May, because it doesn't look like this is going to be settled by May 6th or whatever the date was as far as the forfeiture of the recycling bins. So I think that's where some of the confusion was in the chatter as they were leaving.
And that, I think you had a couple of your comments that were given there that we'll look at, and I think, and we don't want to just respin wheels for another 8 months, and not needlessly may not be the word, but that for us to direct you guys to do something that we want to accomplish.
Right.
For lack of a better way to say it.
And just so you understand where the program is at right now, we did finish assembling all of the carts. We're in the process of making determination whether we're going to deliver those carts or whether we're going to seek proposals from outside contractors to assist us in that. The letters have all gone out. The staff at the garage has answered, I don't know if I'd say hundreds of calls, but probably close to it. So to date, the message has been consistent with the ordinance and with the letters that have gone out. I think if we are going to impose a change, to impose it prior to starting, there just wouldn't be time.
Not enough time. Or very
But that's
little.
not to say, for example, we talked internally about the recycling carts at some of the locations like the mobile home carts, because they were assigned, I think it was 1 per 6 or 1 per 5 units, and if they wanted more, they could purchase more. Seeing that the expected life of those carts is 15 years, when we collect those carts, we'll offer those places a full refund because they only had them for a year. So those types of activities we've already started, and I know from the phone calls that I've fielded, many of the commercial businesses have already contracted with private services to get their stuff taken care of. So, which isn't to say that when we make a decision, if that's different, we can implement that. But I think once that decision is made, then we'll have to go through a process in order to implement it. It wouldn't be timely, I don't think, unless there were some decisions, well, even if they were made tonight and approved at this council meeting, it just wouldn't be feasible to make changes as far as we've gone down this path.
And I think that to do if there were changes to be made, it's going to take a period of time to make the changes. I mean, just legally to ordinance-wise and whatnot, so.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation based on the fact that I voted this down as well because I felt like it wasn't fully vested at the Public Works Committee meetings. And then we took it to council, and then the rest of the council approved it, so I do have some issues with this ordinance and always have had some issues with this ordinance and felt that we should have vetted this out prior to the council approval. But where do we go from here? I definitely appreciate the people that showed up today and that they had valid concerns along with the phone calls that I've received. But once again, there is absolutely no reason we can't relook at some of the language in order to evaluate whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. So that's my recommendation. Whether it's the entire ordinance, which I don't believe so, I think there's just a few paragraphs in the ordinance that's a sticking point, and I definitely think we should put it on next month's agenda to vet it out. It might be too late, or how we implement any proposed changes and the time period in which it takes leaves people in limbo, so we'll obviously have to make a decision by, next committee meeting. And if we have to have a special committee meeting, I think it's totally appropriate, especially given the time frame. The other thing is I wanted to put on the referral list is the current procedure for storm and limb pickups as it relates to, I have received some phone calls about that, and I know we have a current ordinance that states how we go about that. I just think, just like my referral to the snow and ice control, anytime you have events that's unfortunate but nothing we can do about it, I think it's a good time in order to, after the fact, go back and look at it to make sure, is there something we can do better in the ordinance? Is there something that's hanging our street departments up? That kind of thing. I just think it's appropriate, and it doesn't have to be next month. It doesn't have to be for 6 months. We can talk about it in the middle of summer, which would be appropriate. I just think maybe that would be another item that we can talk about, so I'd like that added to the referral.
Okay. Now, item 11, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second to adjourn. Committee, all in favor, respond by aye. Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. The meeting's adjourned at 7:37. Lee did.